Welcome to Meeple Mentor. I'm Jared and we're about to play Game of Ham. Let's take a look. I'll show you how. This is a self-published indie party game intended for adult players. If you're looking for a copy of your own, check the links in the description for more. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell below the video so you don't miss any of my latest content. I'm not one to normally cover party games on this channel, as they often don't need a full tutorial. However, I came across this new party game called Game of Ham, which takes the fun of games like Cards Against Humanity and adds much needed game elements with unique rules, a game board, and player-created content. In essence, it turns the popular card prompt and react concept into a full game. If you've ever wished Cards Against Humanity were more playable for gamers, or had a stronger game element to it, Game of Ham might be for you. Not only does it come with many rule variants to play with it, it also encourages players to create their own content and share it on their website with the world. I'm covering just the base game, which is known as the adult set. Expansions are also coming, but with 810 cards in the core box, there's a lot to keep you busy for a while. And it's full of adult humor and content, so here's your warning in advance. There are several ways this game can be played and set up. First, I'll cover the main way, which includes all the pink cards and the boards. Start with taking all the pink cards and shuffling them up as much as possible. Create draw decks reachable for all players at the table. Lay out the 4 large colored hams in the center of the table. Separate the white-backed cards into their different colors on the fronts. Shuffle each colored deck and place them on their matching ham color. These are known as the colored cards. Shuffle the gray cards and create one draw stack. There are 16 player tokens in different colors. You can play up to 16 people at a time. Everyone should pick a color token to be and return the extras back to the box. It's possible to play without the included game boards, but it's not considered the main way to play. To set up the boards, you can create any pattern you like. The recommended starting pattern for your first few games looks like this. The idea is to create paths that connect from the first board to the last board to make sure you get to the gold space. The pink areas on the boards are background and not used. The second way you might set up the game boards looks like this. In both cases, the gold square at the end is the final space. The furthest away white space from the goal is the starting space for all players. Everyone should place their color ham token on the starting white space. Or everyone can decide on different start spaces. You may choose to play with multiple goals, so having different starting spaces may make sense in those cases. The boards can be arranged in any way you like, creating any pattern of paths. No 2 games need to be the same. Now deal 10 pink cards to each player. This will be private to each player. The first judge of the game needs to be picked, and it can be the smartest person in the room, the newest person to the group, or the person with the closest birthday. The host of the game can decide. That concludes setting up for the basic game. You may play with just the cards, just the board, or both. The winning conditions can be triggered in a variety of ways and must be decided on before starting. I'll cover the game-ending triggers and winning methods a little later. The main way uses the pink cards and the board. First, the judge draws a gray card and reads the prompt for everyone to hear. All the other players will get to choose a pink card from the hand of 10 to respond to it. The pink card a player chooses to use is called their play. After playing a pink card, everyone draws back up to their hand limit. The judge will get to read all of the pink cards played out loud and choose their favorite. This process is called playing out a trick. Whichever card is chosen, that player has won the trick and gets to keep the gray prompt card. This winner gets to move their piece on the board a number of spaces shown at the bottom of the card. They may choose either of the 2 numbers to use for movement. If you're playing with 8 or more people, you may also instead use the sum of the 2 numbers for your movement. Resolve the conditions of the board space they land on. Then that player becomes the judge for the next round. Continue like this until the game end trigger is met. Some spaces show a number. By landing on them, the player may continue moving their piece forward the amount shown. The colored squares with a red circle in the middle allow the player who lands there to draw a colored card matching the color of the square. You only get to draw a card if moved there from a gray card, not from a numbered space sending you there. The base game and board has green, red, orange, and yellow as colored card possibilities. The white spaces are also known as bounce spots in addition to the starting point. According to the piece bully rule, when another player lands on your piece, you are bounced back to the last white bounce spot you passed. You can also decide at the beginning of the game if you want to use the rule of bouncing to the closest white bounce spot instead. The gray spaces and the white spaces protect your piece from being bullied, so if someone lands on you when you're at a gray or white square, you do not have to move. There are some colored cards that force a player to bounce to a gray space. Since there are fewer on the board, the move back is usually worse. Lastly, the gold spaces are used for checkpoints and the finish line. Usually there's only one goal space that players must land on exactly. Players' pieces cannot be bullied from a gold spot. When players move on the board, they must follow the one-way ticket rule, meaning you can't start moving in a direction and double back. Moving back is only allowed if you've reached a dead end or must turn around from hitting the goal end goal space. There's no limit to the number of colored cards that a player can hold. Each one will explain what it does and how it can be played. When multiple people want to play their colored card for its effect, you settle the order by creating a stack. The stack pile rule says to place the first card played on the bottom of the stack and others played on top in the order players tried to play them. Then resolve each one from top to bottom. So the last person to try to play a colored card will be the first to resolve it. Also, you may instead use them to advance your piece on the board by giving them to another player. By choosing a player to give a colored card to, you get to advance your piece one space forward on the board. You may not gift give like this to avoid being bounced backwards. Also, gifting a colored card doesn't count towards the stack pile of resolving them. If you choose a random player to receive the card, you may move 2 spaces instead of 1. You can randomize the player in whatever method you want. The player who receives the colored card may not gift it to anyone else for at least 3 turns. Also, there's no limit to the number of colored cards you may gift in a row. However, if someone wins a gray card and is about to win, no one may use the gift giver mechanic to either beat them to the goal spot or tie. The person who is moving forward from the gray card will have priority for the win in that case. Sometimes a gray prompt card will ask for more than one pink card to complete the phrase. Each player will place the amount of pink cards needed to complete it. According to the bottom-up rule, the bottom card is read first and the top card read last. So the first pink card you want to be read first should be placed face down, with the next ones in order to be placed face down on top. That way, the judge flips the stack over and reads them in order to fill in the prompt's phrase. You'll notice the backs of the gray cards have the letters H, A, or M. If you can spell ham with 3 of your 1 gray cards, you may use them once to negate the effects of an opponent's played colored card, or prevent them from giving it. You can create your own discard pile of used ham cards. They'll still count towards scoring, even if spent to block a card's effects. This Ham Lord rule also lets you use the cards to partially negate a card's effects. For a colored card that affects multiple people, you may choose which players it affects. Once your 3 ham cards are used this way, they may not be used again for anything else for its letters. To resolve any ruling, mechanic, or card in the game that is ambiguous, the host gets to decide the final decision on it. This is called the Royal Decree rule. Game of Ham includes several ways to trigger the end of the game, and several ways to determine the winner. First, let's look at the possible game end triggers. The group will decide on which one to use before starting the game. When using the board, having moved your piece through each goal checkpoint and landing on the final goal spot exactly will end the game. For example, if you're 2 spaces from the goal and must move 3, move to the goal and move the 1 extra space away in any valid direction. Only by landing on the goal will the game be ended. The rulebook includes a table for the number of players and number of gray cards to collect to reach the end of the game. In a 4-player game, someone would need to have won 8 gray cards to trigger the end. You may go by this recommended table or determine the card limit as you like at the beginning. Instead of finishing the board or collecting a number of cards, you may also choose to end the game by adding up the points at the bottom of the collected cards. The 2 numbers used for movement will also be used in this way as points to add up. Determine before starting if you'll be only counting the left number or right number. The left number will range from 1 to 4, while the right number will range from 2 to 9. There's an included table in the rules for a recommended amount of points to collect based on the number of players. So with 5 players and using the left number on the card, the game will end once someone reaches 25. You may choose all 3 of the game end conditions to use. Either someone completes the board, collects the required number of gray cards, or reaches the point limit. Now, any of the 3 can end the game, whichever one comes first. You won't need all 3 to complete, just one of them. Once the game ending triggers, you'll determine the winner based on one of the pre-selected win conditions. Here's the different possibilities. The winner can be decided by the 1 gray cards. Whoever has the most at the end wins. These are only tallied after one of the game end triggers is met. When using the board, you may play that the first player to complete all checkpoints and land on the final goal spot will be the winner. Checkpoints don't have to be used in the game, but must be passed if they are. Remember that the final goal must be landed on exactly. Choose either the left or right number shown on the bottom of the gray cards. When the game ends, add up the sum of each player's individually collected cards. For a more balanced game, use the left number for the sum. For a highly variable game, use the right number. Looking at these winning conditions, there are a combination of ways you can win. When the game ends and a player either completing the board or reaching the end game points goal, the player who triggered it wins. Whichever happens first becomes the scoring method, and you can award placing for other players. Or you can score when either a player reaches the collected gray card limit or completing the board. The player who completes the board automatically wins, unless the card limit is reached first. Then they win, and you can award placing based on other players' collected cards. Lastly, you can score based on either the point values of the collected gray cards or the number of cards collected. Whichever goal is reached first becomes the scoring method to place the winners. The last method you can use is to actually combine one of the game end methods but make the winning determination different. For example, you could have the game end once a player reaches the goal on the board, but the number of gray cards collected will determine the winner. One of the suggested gameplay variants is called Origin Story. The judge may choose a gray card from the deck, which makes up the setting of the story. Then the other players are given 4 pink cards they must use to each make up a short story that fits into the context of the setting. The judge still chooses the winner and gives them the gray card. The winning player still gets to advance on the game board like normal and become the judge for the next round. The group can decide for each round how many pink cards can be used in creating the story. The group may also decide how many pink cards to have in their hand to choose from throughout the game. All the other rules of the main game are still applied. The main game can also be played in teams. First, split the group into even teams. Players' pieces can start on any white bounce spot determined by the group. This includes deciding on a single start space, multiple, or letting everyone choose their own. Teammates must place their game pieces on either the same board or an adjacent board to one of their teammates. Any white bounce spot can be a starting point. The piece bully rules do not apply to players on the same team. You won't bounce them back by landing on your partner's space. The teams must pass each gold checkpoint on the board in order. Not every player on the team must pass each one. They are done collectively. After a team has passed all the checkpoints, each player on the team must have their piece sitting on a goal space to end the game. While sitting on a goal spot, winning a gray card will force you to move off the goal unless you give a colored card to a random opponent. Then you can stay on the goal space. Once the game is ended, evaluate the winning conditions to see who wins. As an optional rule, once all the goal spots have been passed and players are just trying to land on goal spaces to end, you may enforce the piece bully mechanics for pieces sitting on goals. It makes the scramble at the end of the game a little more hectic, as you can be bumped off the goal and sent back to a white bounce spot. Bounces from colored cards will also affect players' pieces on goal spaces. There's a game variant for large groups, but you have to have another copy of the game for more than one set of game boards to use. Divide up into teams and have 2 or more games going simultaneously. Your partners are playing on a different board. Teammates may give each other colored cards they've earned from their own game. Each team member must win on their respective board. Then they're done and must wait for their partner to win at their board. So this variant involves first winning on an individual game, then as a team once all players have won. This variant allows a lot of people to play the game at the same time without slowing down the pace. As an optional rule, you may not freely give your teammate a colored card. Instead, it must be traded 1 for 1 with each other. You can trade colored cards or for something else. The group can decide at the beginning of the game. To play with just the cards, the judge draws a gray card and reads it out loud for everyone to hear. The players will respond to it by playing pink cards. Players will choose a pink card from their personal 10 to respond to the gray prompt card. The judge will get to read all of them and choose their favorite. The winner of the prompt keeps the gray card in front of them and will become the judge for the following round. Continue like this trick after trick until you reach the predetermined end goal. This could be number of gray cards collected, or points earned from the value of the cards at the bottom. The numbers can be counted up as points in this way instead of being used for movement. To play with just the board, you won't use the pink cards at all. In this basic variant, simply go clockwise in turn order, drawing a gray card. The player drawing the card moves their piece on the board's path, the number shown on the bottom. Decide at the start if you'll use the first or second number during the game. If you have a game of 8 or more people, you could choose to use the sum of the 2 numbers for your movement. Play continues until a player passes all the goal spaces or lands on the final goal square. The piece must land on the final space exactly. Any extra movement will move you past or force you to turn around depending on the board layout. As you can see, there's a lot of game in this party box, and there's more ways to customize how you can play the game. Stick with me to hear all the extra rules and mechanics changes that you can make to the game. If you want to skip ahead to the adult party rules, check the timestamps in the description. The anarchist rule allows the group to remove or change any of the mandatory game rules. This can become utter chaos, as you could even change a rule during the game. For pity's sake, lets a player discard their whole hand of pink cards for all new ones from the top of the deck. Doing this penalizes the player by forcing them to skip the next trick. The hate avatar, also known as Ha, brings an imaginary player to the game. Ha will get a piece to move on the board. Each trick, Ha participates by giving the top pink card off the deck to the judge as well. If the judge picks its card as the winner, the next judge will be the one sitting clockwise from the current judge. The judge should also award a second place pink card. The Ha piece will get to move on the board based on the gray card, just like the player. The direction of movement will be chosen by the second place player of the trick. If Ha lands on a colored space, draw the top card of the matching color deck like normal. It is immediately played against the player sitting counterclockwise to the judge. Any targets described on the color card starts with the player counterclockwise from the judge and continuing around if more targets are needed. Any other targets that apply to specific or chosen cards, just randomize it. In Game Roulette, the group will get to randomly pick any number of optional rules and mechanics. The rulebook numbers each one to help facilitate this kind of play. They recommend choosing 4 random rules to use. The Kiss the Toad rule can be added to your game to spice it up a bit. With everyone's consent, the winner of the game must kiss the loser. By using this rule, you may apply the Peace Bully mechanic whenever gift giving, meaning when you gift a colored card to a player for movement, landing on a player's piece will bully them to the last passed white bounce spot. You may also extend this rule to movement given from playing a colored card for its ability. Double the Trouble works similar to the trade-in villain rule. Instead of gift giving causing the Peace Bully to happen, this rule applies to movement from colored cards played. This ham advantage rule adds another purpose for collecting gray cards that spell out ham. Now you may use the cards to move your piece exactly 5 spaces forward. The group can decide if landing on a color space will provide a card or not. This rule gets a little mean. Once a piece is landed on and completed the board on the final goal, it goes back to the start space and begins again. This can be done as many times as the group decides. Around the World lets players move pieces to spaces on the opposite side of the board as if it were wrapped around. The space has to still line up on the same row or column that the piece leaves from. Normally you may not use the gift giver mandatory rule to avoid getting bounced. Using the evasive maneuvers rule in your game overrides that and lets you do exactly that. This adds a little more strategy to the game. The overlap and conquer rule applies to situations where a colored card tells you to move or add a board tile. When moving a tile, the player may choose to overlap adjacent board pieces. Game of Ham has multiple expansions such as rose-colored glasses and Into the Heart of Emotions. If you want to include them all, you may split the cards into their separate decks to give players the opportunity to choose which set to draw from. When a game is taking too long or you want to finish it quickly, you may apply the Take Pity rule to move all players' pieces up to the next white bounce spot on the board. This spot becomes the furthest back space on the board. When playing the main game using the board and cards, you may choose to add the final show-off rule. Once the game ends, the player who reached the goal spot first and the player with the most gray cards face off against each other. They compete in a best-of-3 rounds. The group decides the winner for each trick. Using this rule, decide a set number of turns before you start playing that will be the finish line. After reaching that number of turns, players may no longer bounce other players or get new colored cards. You may keep any colored cards already gained to this point, but they may not be played for their abilities. Instead, their only use is for gift-giving movement. If you have more boards from multiple copies or expansions, you may choose to play with more than 4 boards. If you use more than the standard 4 boards to play, you should double the movement value shown on the gray cards. Doubling the movement value also applies to the sum of the 2 numbers when playing in a group of 8 or more people. The capitalist gold rule allows free trading of any cards to any players. The group can decide at the beginning if only certain card types can be traded or all of them. The trades don't need to be even trades. You may also trade gray cards, but not ones used already for spelling hand. The Mully Life rule allows players to mulligan cards with replacements. The group can decide which type of cards are allowed to be exchanged. Trade an equal amount of cards for the same card type. For the gray cards, the rules recommend using a 2-to-1 ratio. Trade 2 gray cards for 1 random from the deck. The group can decide also if gaining new gray cards like this should result in movement on the board or not. It's also recommended to penalize sitting out a number of turns for mulliganing pink cards. If you can get your hands on a die, you can use the high roller rule. Before the judge draws a gray card for a trick, he'll roll a die. If the rolled number isn't shown on the gray card drawn, the winner of the card will not gain a colored card from this movement. You could optionally make it more difficult by requiring the number to match the card in order to draw a colored card. The ante-up rule adds a little bit of gambling to the game. For the gambling items, you could use poker chips, a bag of candy, cash, or anything you like. Before any tricks take place, everyone must pay an ante in order to participate in it. The winner of the trick also takes the antes. Players may also choose not to ante in a round to sit out. They may choose after the gray card is read. The Pure Chaos rule removes the safety of being on a white bounce spot. Now those players may be bounced even though they were already on a white bounce spot. For even more chaos, you can allow bounced players to bounce others that they land on as well. This can trigger a series of bounces involving several players. The Juiced Up Gift Giver rule allows you to move 3 spaces forward on the board by giving a random colored card in your hand to a random player. The Oppression rule can be applied when a player gets bounced on the board. If the player being bounced yells out "Oppression" before the next judge begins reading the next prompt, they may move 1 or 2 spaces forward after being bounced. This movement won't trigger any other peace bully possibilities. The group should decide before starting if the free oppression movement is 1 or 2 for the entire game. When playing Game of Ham without the board, you may apply the Gimme That Color rule. The winner of a trick may also draw a colored card of their choice before becoming judge for the next round. While this rule could be added when using the board, it's not recommended. You should use this rule with at least 4 different color card piles. Some gray cards allow the judge to create their own prompt. Using the ideal democracy mechanic, the group can decide together what the card's prompt will be. For ties on what the prompt should be, the judge gets to choose. You should of course decide before playing if this rule will be in effect. In this new mechanic, the judge may choose not to do a blank gray card when drawn. If they don't do it, they pass as judge and the next player clockwise becomes the new judge. The group can decide at the beginning if the new judge will be clockwise or counterclockwise, or letting the judge choose a new one directly. If you draw a pink card that's blank, you may choose to place it on the bottom of the deck and draw a new one. Normally, when you play a blank card, you must come up with your own answer. Players may choose to replace blank cards at any time like this. The group can also decide to allow a certain number of other pink cards to be discarded this way with the blank card to replace more cards quicker. The next 3 rules involve punishing losing players of each trick. This new game mechanic adds dares to the game to get the party really going. Before drawing a card for a trick, the current judge is allowed to create a dare for the losers to do. They'll specify how many losers from bottom up must do it. As long as no one objects to the dare before the next prompt is read, They have tacitly given consent to do it if they lose. If a player did not object to the dare and loses, they must do the dare. This game mechanic adds a physical punishment to the loser. Before starting the game, decide what the workout is when you lose. It could be something like 10 push-ups, 30 jumping jacks, or whatever the group decides. The loser of each trick must do this workout punishment before the next round starts. It adds a strong incentive not to use throwaway cards each trick. The group can also decide to change the rule to apply to any number of losers each trick. Game of Ham offers ways for the players to come up with their own punishments for losers each trick. The predetermined fate rule says the group may choose a number of losers to perform any consequence when losing. It could be another game mechanic or some punishment the group comes up with. You may decide the parameters before the game or at the start of each round. Get creative with it. The next few game changes involve the colored cards. Normally, the colored cards are separated into their stacks and drawn specifically when a player lands on its color on the board. In the dog pile variant, shuffle all the colored cards together to create one draw deck. Anytime a player should take a colored card, they draw off the top of the single deck. You may choose to adjust this variant so only certain colors are combined into their own mixed deck instead of all of them. When you play the game with an expansion or set that has more than 4 colors of cards, designate the 4 most dominant colors found on the board as the Uber cards. Landing on these allow you to draw 2 of them. The non-dominant colors will still only give you 1. Alternatively, you may choose the least common colors to be the Uber cards. Players can choose at the start to use the level up mechanic, which allows players to decrease their hand size by 3 for a few turns in order to immediately draw a colored card. When discarding down, the 3 cards should be random. The group can decide to limit this ability to a certain number of times during the game. The group should also determine how many turns the penalty hand size should apply to. In the limited sadness variant, players who take the rightmost movement number of a 1 gray card won't gain the colored card reward. Choosing the right number usually offers more movement on the board, so preventing that player from also gaining a colored card is a way to balance out board progress with card options. The next new game mechanics you may use involve competitions to settle the winner between 2 tying players playing the best pink cards. If by chance one of the tied players is the Ha automated player, the judge gets to choose a player to compete for it. If the chosen player refuses the challenge, then Ha automatically loses. At times, a judge may not be able to pick a favorite among the pink cards played. When the judge has 2 tying choices, the players who played them may compete to make the judge laugh. Whoever makes the judge laugh first wins the trick. Alternatively, the 2 tied players can compete to make each other laugh. Again, when 2 pink cards are judged equally good, the 2 players may compete in a thumb wrestling match to settle the winner. Another way to resolve 2 tied pink card choices is to have players compete against each other in a staring contest. They lock eyes and stare. The first to blink loses. You may choose to let the 2 tying players have a breath-holding competition to determine the winner. Take a deep breath and hold. First to let out and breathe loses. Just as an added disclaimer, don't do this until you pass out. Just be responsible. Using the heavy-duty armor mechanic, the 2 tied players may settle the win by doing an arm wrestling match. Winner takes the gray card and becomes the next judge. If the judge finds multiple possible winning pink cards, the players may play a quick game of Never Have I Ever to determine the winner. Each participating player holds up 3 fingers and takes turns in a clockwise order, saying things they've never done. The judge should pick one of the pink cards as the one they're most leaning towards. That player goes first. If any other players have done them, they should put a finger down. Proceed like this until there's 1 player left who has fingers still out. When the judge is torn between several great pink cards played, the players involved may play a quick game of 2 truths and a lie to determine the winner. The player whose card was the judge's favorite among them goes first. Each player takes turns clockwise saying 2 true statements about themselves and 1 lie. The other players guess which one is the lie. For guessing correctly, the player gets a point. The first player to get 3 points like this will win the gray card and become the next judge. The dance-off variant is exactly what it sounds like. The tied players who played equally good pink cards compete in dancing to an entire song of the judge's choice. All non-dancing players may vote for the best dancer, with the judge breaking ties. In the Master Improviser mechanic, players will resolve equally good pink cards by doing a 1 to 2 minute improv scene. The judge may provide the scenario for the players to act in and give them roles to play. After 1 or 2 minutes of improv, the group will vote who did a better job in the scene. The judge gets to break ties. The following rules are for adults only and were included in the Game of Ham rulebook for fun and at the request of the fans. As a disclaimer from myself and the designers, please be responsible and know your limits when consuming alcohol or smoking weed. These rule variants are designed for responsible play among adults. Remember, both of these can be dangerous when abused. This is my disclaimer. If you have any objectionable issue with it, just don't do it. Every time you're the loser of a round, take a small hit, do a THC drop, or eat a small edible. Every time the judge loves your pink card played, you should take a hit or eat an edible. This may or may not be the winner of the trick. When you've won a gray card during a trick, take a hit or eat an edible. Anytime a player plays a colored card's ability against you, or one that affects you, take a hit or eat an edible. You may negate this effect by playing your 3 spelled out ham cards. Using this variant, the judge will also get to vote which is the worst pink card played during the trick. The player who played it takes a hit or eats an edible. In this variant, no matter the outcome of the trick, each player either takes a small hit, THC drop, or eats a small edible. At times when the judge can't decide on the best pink card played, they may consult with the highest person in the room for help making the decision. If the highest player played one of the tied pink cards, the group can decide whether or not to bring in the second highest person for counsel that round. Before starting the game, everyone who's not already trashed should do a double shot of hard liquor or chug a beer. During a team game or multi-team game, each time someone from your team loses a round, someone from the team must take a swig of beer, wine, or cider. The same player can't be chosen to drink more than 3 times in a row. With this variant, players are allowed to call who they think will win in a round. If right, all other players must take a shot. If wrong, you must take the shot. Each player may only try this once every 5 rounds, no more than 2 shots every 5 rounds for a single player. If people start abusing this mechanic, switch to swigs of beer, wine, or cider instead. While using the game board and bouncing an opponent backwards, you take a shot or swig of beer, wine, or cider. The Punisher rule is opposite of the Remorseful Bouncer. In this case, the player who gets bounced will have to take a shot or swig of soft alcohol. If a judge deems that all the pink cards played that round are disappointing, they may invoke shame. In that case, all the players must take a shot of hard liquor or a swig of soft alcohol. Should a judge find a played pink card particularly bad, they may force that player to take a hard shot or soft swig. If you're the player to trigger the end of the game, all other players must finish their drink. If they don't have one, they must do a liquor shot or completely drink a beer, wine, or cider. This rule is best applied when using expansions together with the base game. Assign each player a set symbol. Whenever that symbol card is chosen in a trick, the assigned player drinks a swig of soft alcohol. If a player uses a colored card to change the judge's vote but still loses, they must take a shot of hard liquor or a swig of soft alcohol. When moving your piece on or past a checkpoint space on the board, you may choose a player to take a shot. Alternatively, you can make all other players take a shot if everyone's really trying to get trashed. This rule variant allows players to choose not to bounce a player when landing on them per the Peace Bully rules. If you choose not to bounce the player, you should take a shot or swig of soft alcohol. While using the for pity's sake mechanic and choosing to turn in your hand for a fresh set of cards, they must also take a shot or swig of soft alcohol. This does not apply if forced to discard their hand from a colored card's ability. This rule only applies when you use the Ha automated player in your game. If the Ha automated player wins a trick, all players must take a shot or swig of soft alcohol. This is a particularly rough rule to use as it may exponentially increase the amount of drinking. Decide before starting the game if this rule is being used. Whenever anyone is supposed to take a shot or swig, they must first flip a coin and call it. If they call it right, they're safe. If wrong, they must do an additional shot or swig. In this variant, the judge will also pick the worst pink card played that round. The person who played it must take a shot or swig of soft alcohol. The rebuttal rule is the ability of a player to use the spelled out ham cards to negate having to take a drink. Optionally, you may play that when it's countered like this, the person who gets countered must instead take a shot or swig of soft alcohol. The trade-off mechanic lets players give one of your collected cards to any player to force them to take a shot of the liquor of your choice. If the targeted player blocks this using the solid rebuttal, the colored card used is discarded without effect. Keep the rulebook handy and check BoardGameGeek.com for FAQs and extra content. Check the video description for links to Top Shelf Gamer for token upgrades and SleeveKings.com for a 10% off coupon on card sleeves. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you found this teaching helpful. Stick around to watch another Learn to Play video. And remember, teach when you can, but always be learning. See you next time.